Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the series finale of the Dine Learns of the summer of 2025. Today is August 25th, 2025. Tonight's Dine Learn is sponsored by our friend Ari Razman and the Wanunu family, L'zecher Nishmas, Mrs. Wanunu's father, Reb Moshe ben Reb Shmuel. Neshama should have an aliyah. I think everybody, we had a very good turnout this summer, so I thank everybody for coming and participating. This summer we're talking about AI and Halachah, and this is our final one. I thought maybe we'd talk a little bit about copyright. So there are lawsuits going on right now, been going on for a few years, and I think they're continuing to go on, suing the AI companies, meaning content providers, suing the AI companies. For example, if you're Jerry Seinfeld, I don't think he's in a lawsuit. If I go to ChatGPT and I say, write this in the style of Jerry Seinfeld, it's going to write something, give me Jerry Seinfeld jokes. Obviously, it was trained on Seinfeld's material, and that's why it's able to imitate it. So some of these other celebrities are suing ChatGPT and others to because they believe their copyright has been, they didn't get permission, they didn't get paid. Their property was used without their permission. Intellectual property.
It's not public information. It's not like they're not taking from episodes or whatever.
Even if it is, you have to pay for the episodes. But I don't know how that's going to end up. I'm not a lawyer. That's in the hands of the courts. Let them figure it out. I'm thinking copyright in the reverse. Do we have to acknowledge ChatGPT or whatever AI we use when we use them? I think in this particular area, Halachah might be stricter than secular law. So if you go to ChatGPT and you check on the I don't know, somewhere in the terms and conditions, it explicitly states that they relinquish all rights. Any rights that they have, they give to you, if they have any rights. And the same thing with Claude. I think all the AIs do that. It's free for you to use, assuming they have the rights, right? That's for the courts to decide whether they have the right to give to you. But assuming they have the rights, they give it to you. So copyright, you're free. U.S. law, you're free to go, unless Jerry Seinfeld comes after you also. So, be careful there. But Halachah is stricter. So I have this sefer in my hands, Copyright in Jewish Law, by Rabbi Nachum Menashe Weisfish. In it, he says there are two main views in Halachah on copyright. One view is that whoever creates content has ownership in that content, essentially a halachic copyright in that, and you need to get his permission in order to use it. The other view is no such thing. No such thing in Halachah as a copyright, but there's such a thing in law. So you can't violate the law, dina de machusa dina, you have to follow the law, so wherever the law applies to copyright, so then therefore it applies to you. So you can't just start copying books and things like that. So let's say I buy a book, or I buy a cassette or a CD. If you remember, there used to be CDs and cassettes, which it said on it like, you can't, if you copy this, the sale is null and void. And they even did a Tanai Kuffel, so in the reverse, and it was kind of silly, because, okay, fine, so I'll copy it. I'll go back to the store and say, please give me my money back. The sale is null and void. Be that as it may, according to the first view, you're not allowed to copy music illegally because the music producer, the singer or whoever owns it, has a right, and you're violating Halachah. You're stealing from him. It's Geneva. And according to the second view, you can't copy music or books or anything like that because it's against the law. Because the U.S. law gives him a copyright, and you're not allowed to violate the law.
But there are plenty of people who don't hold by Dina Machusa Dina.
No, everybody. It's a Gemara. Everybody holds by Dina de Machusa Dina. If you don't hold by Dina de Machusa Dina, you're called a Ganav.
I got news for you. Rabbi Mendelson and I have discussed this for a long time. Plenty of you don't hold by Dina de Machusa Dina.
I don't believe it. I refuse to believe there are people who don't keep Shabbos. I refuse to believe there are Jews who don't keep Kashrus, and I refuse to believe there are Jews who don't follow Dina de Machusa Dina. If it's a law that's not enforced, so that's a separate thing. Back, I think it was in 2024, New York officially made it legal to cross against the light and cross and jaywalk. But before that, it was always illegal, but they never enforced it. So I personally walked with poskim and crossed against the light. You look, see no cars, Safe, you cross. There were two particular rebbeim in YU that I did this with. One was Herschel Schechter, who felt free to cross against the light, if it was completely safe. There were literally no cars anywhere, so you just kept walking. Rav David Lifshitz always stopped. He always stopped and waited for the green light. Maybe it was because he was old. I don't know. But Dina Mechusa Dina certainly applies when it comes to financial matters. So let's talk about this. So in terms of the U.S. law, copyright law, when it comes to AI, so they relinquish all rights. There is no copyright issue whatsoever. Dina Mechusa Dina says it's mutter, says it's allowed. So the only question is according to the first view. No, according to either view, even according to the first view. Let's say, Davi, you create some brilliant original content, and then you say on the bottom, everybody's free to use it. So Halachah would say, I'm not stealing from you. If I take it, you gave me reshus. So according to both views, it should be mutter, it should be permissible to use ChatGPT's material and not give ChatGPT any credit at all. But it's a little more complicated. So Moshe Feinstein, I've quoted this here before. Moshe Feinstein was asked, are high school students allowed to cheat on the Regents exams? So he has a tshuva where he says, first of all, is gnevas das. You're deceiving people, because you're claiming to have knowledge by getting a 100 or a 90. Nobody get 100. Get 100, you're foolish, because it makes it a little more obvious. Someone's going to look into it. You get a 98 on the Regents, so you're claiming to be an expert, which you're not, and that could affect you getting into college or whatever. You put it on your resume. You say, I got a 98 on the math region. Let me be your bookkeeper. So he thinks it's gnevas das, it's misleading. Number one. Number two, he says, if you do get a job based on your Regents exam, or if you get into college that you otherwise would not have been able to get into, and then you have a Harvard degree, and you get a job based on your Harvard, fine, not Harvard. You get into, I don't know what's a good college nowadays. Okay, but Torah, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, so you get some sort of degree based on that, and then you get a job, and they gave you that job based on your accomplishments, and you lied. Those are the accomplishments were not real. Then every paycheck you get, he says Moshe, is you're stealing part of that paycheck. The extra money that they're giving you because you got that good grade on the Regents is theft. So that would imply that if you get anything, if you get any sort of financial benefit, or even if you get some credit based on ChatGPT's eloquence that you don't have, that's gnevas das.
Yeah, but who you're stealing from? If you're doing the job that's being asked of you, irrelevant of what you did performance-wise in school, what does one have to do with the other?
Right. So in a world in which there's equal pay for equal work, I would agree with you. But the reality is, based on your pedigree, based on your resume, you get paid more, and based on your gender, you get paid more. So, but there's also the gnevas das. You're fooling people. You're saying I can write. I'm sorry?
A regular test in school when it doesn't actually matter for a job, whether you fail or pass a spelling test.
Okay, listen to me, kid. Do not cheat on any test you ever take. It's gnevas das. That's what you get when you have school children in the shir. They're always going to try to find a way. Don't cheat. It's bad for your neshama.
We know where to find you.
Don't do drugs.
Slippery slope.
Gil didn't say that.
So, the Machane Chaim, Reb Chaim Sofer, so he was Hungarian posek in the 1800s. He was a Talmud of the Chasam Sofer, but not related. So he was asked, can you say a Dvar Torah in the name of someone who's a Reform rabbi, someone who's you had some sort of simcha? You heard him say Dvar Torah. It was really good, but he's not really from. So can you say Dvar Torah in the name of someone who's not from? So he said no, for reasons that we're not going to discuss right now. I think we've discussed it in the past, but regardless, we're not going to go there. But he said you are allowed to say it over, but you can't take credit for it. You have to say, I heard it somewhere. You don't have to say where you heard it, but I heard this answer, because if you just say the Dvar Torah straight, people are going to think, oh wow, you came up with that great chiddush. But it wasn't you. You didn't. You can't take credit. You're not allowed to take credit for any brilliance, any intelligence, any eloquence that isn't yours. That is gnevas das.
By the way, just follow up on this gentleman's point. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Nothing there.
Nelson Mayer's point. You know, I can understand the argument with gnevas das if somebody's purporting to be an expert, let's say on a medical board. If somebody cheats on a medical board, then they're going to become a doctor. It's a big problem that it really is gnevas das. You see it cheated. Regions where it's something that people use merely to get through the system, I can't really hear such an argument that it's gnevas das if it's just a regent or other tests that people are using to get through high school or BA.
Right, but it's bragging rights, and you treat it differently by your teachers, by your principal, by your parents, by your grandparents' neighbors. You know, it inflates people's opinion of you, fairly or not. Fairly or not. I mean, what's the regent's exam, really? It just shows that you were taught to the test, you're able to take it, and you knew the material.
Yeah, they're not purporting, though, to be B'kiyim within a certain field if they pass a regent. I'm just saying.
Look, your parents will love you no matter what grade you get.
Well,
but they'll think of you. They might think of you, if you get a really good grade on your regents, they might think of you as the intellectual guy, the book guy. If you do something else really good, they might think of you as something else very good. There are many reasons parents would think of you, but you don't want to get the wrong. You don't want to create the wrong impression.
yeah. There's also shilas about gnevas das in regard to translating Sidurim or Chumashim. If you're not giving the literal translation, you know, certain publications. I'm not going to mention.
I'm not going to go there. I'm not with you 100%. I'm not with you 100%.
Then I didn't say it is. I'm just saying there's shilas about it.
I don't think. I think a literal translation is also misleading, and every translation involves commentary. So I'm not with you on that. But I think it's a very smart. It's a good question to start a conversation.
That's why the famous, well, he wasn't that famous, Maltiel Birnbaum Siddur was very, very machmir to give the literal translation of each, you know, every single word, every single syllable.
Okay.
He was very machmir.
It was a good. I grew up with a siddur. I grew up with the Birnbaum siddur. Okay, going back on topic. So the Machaneh Chaim says you're not allowed to quote a Dvar Torah in your own name when someone else said it. You have to give some sort of credit, or at least remove credit from yourself, so that it's not gnevas das. So I don't know if anybody here knew Rabbi Aaron Levine. He was the rabbi of the young Israel, think of Avenue J.
Business ethics.
J. And he was an economics professor at YU. He was a famous Dine as well. He was a big Talmud Chacham.
My Rebbe.
He was your Rebbe. Okay, so I published one of his books. And in that book that I published, he makes the point that it's more than that. It's not only gnevas das. There's also a chiyuv of hakaras hatov. You have to have gratitude. Someone taught you something, you have to acknowledge it. That's why they say, Kol ha'omer davar b'shem omro, maybe geula olam, right? If you quote something in the name of someone else, you bring geula to bring redemption to the world. It's a matter of hakaras hatov. By showing hakaras hatov to someone else, by quoting something in their name, that is what brings the geula to the world. And therefore, if you fail to acknowledge your sources, then he was very big on footnotes. Very big on footnotes. You have to footnote everything, because if you don't footnote, you're failing to acknowledge the gratitude to someone who taught you something. So misleading people, if you use ChatGPT, you might be misleading people as to your abilities, so that's a problem. But is there an issue of hakaras hatov to ChatGPT? Or not? It's what? It's a computer. It's a stick in a stone, like we talked about the other week. But if you look in the story of the Makos, so I mean, look in Rashi in the Midrash. So it says, why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu do any of the Makos on the Nile? Because the Nile saved him when he was a kid. Why didn't he do the Makah of Kinim, which came from the dirt? Because the dirt saved him when he killed the Mitzri, and he had buried him in the dirt. So Moshe Rabbeinu had to show hakaras hatov to the Nile and to the dirt, to the desert, to the ground. But that's just also inanimate objects. So we see from there that there is a chiyuv of hakaras hatov, even to inanimate objects. But why? They don't really appreciate the gratitude. Look, if you quote me, say Gil student told me this, I feel a little good. You know, I'll admit it. I do feel good if I hear my name quoted. The Nile, trust me, the Nile doesn't feel good if it hears its name quoted. So what's the deal? So Rav Nebensal, Victor Nebensal, in one of his sichas on Shmos, So he says the thing is, it's not about Hakaras Tov is not about the recipient, who you're showing Hakaras Tov to. It's about you. It's about you need to develop that character trait that you acknowledge when people do something for you. You're not an island. You're not the greatest person in the world. You have benefited from a lot of things and a lot of people, and you need to acknowledge that. So if you are benefiting from Google Gemini, from Claude, from ChatGPT, you should be showing gratitude to those AIs, not because they care, but because you care. Because you're showing that you recognize it's not all from you. Which means, so far, from what I've said, it sounds like you have to always acknowledge if ChatGPT helps you. But actually, the reality is not quite so simple. There's this concept called ghostwriting, where famous people hire someone to write for them a book, articles, and it's written under the famous person's name. Speeches, and well, that's a speechwriter. But but it's usually maybe somewhere buried, if it's a book, buried in the acknowledgments, they might mention the name of the ghostwriter. Might. But I've ghostwritten articles for famous rabbis. I never get credit for it.
But you were paid for it, you were compensated for it, weren't you?
Not really, not necessarily.
I mean, they're famous plagiarists also. Joe Biden was famous for
It's a little more complicated than that, but yeah, he was probably the most famous plagiarist in American history, American political history at least. But it's the whole story is actually a little more complicated. I'm more unimpressed by his blatant lies than by his plagiarism that happened in the 80s.
But it was a race to the bottom. Okay.
Yeah. But when we're talking about so why is ghostwriting? Why is it okay? Why is it okay for let's say I don't know, Steve Jobs, if he wrote a book, I don't know, hired a ghostwriter. I don't know if he did or whatever. I don't know if he published any book. But so why is it okay for him to publish a book written by someone else under his own name, and not give Hakaras Tov to the writer or any of these famous people? None of these famous politicians write their own books.
Because the writer could be mochel in exchange for the payment that he's getting.
So one point is the writer is getting something in exchange. That's 100% true. And the other thing is people have expectations. People know Hillary Clinton didn't write her book. Well, we don't expect. So yes, the writer is happy that he got paid. He did his job. He got paid for it. But there's also it's not real gnevas das. There's no misleading anybody because we know how the world works. We know this is what happens. We know famous rabbis don't have time to do anything because they're hounded by people with shilohs and really the life and death issues surround them. All they could really do is talk to somebody for a few minutes. They give them some ideas and then quickly review it and that's it. We know that's how the way the world works. And if it's understood that's the way things happen, then there's no gnevas das. You're not misleading people. So the upshot of this would mean that if it's understood, if it's an accepted fact that everybody's using ChatGPT, people know if you publish an article, it's been used by ChatGPT. We know it's been edited. Nobody gives Hakaras Tov to the editor. Very rarely do people give Hakaras Tov. It's usually the other way around. They're angry at the editor. Maybe in a book, in acknowledgments, they might mention the copy editor or something like that. Maybe not. But people know it's been edited. Nobody sits there and just writes down or types down. Writing. Nobody writes at all. But nobody types a book and then just publishes. It's been edited. And we know that. It's understood. It's not gnevas das that you wrote something that is totally free of all grammatical errors. That's not the way the world works. So if that's the case, so when and if it becomes standard practice and understood by everybody that your article was really written with the help of ChatGPT, so then you don't have to mention it. It's not necessary. Until that time, it is necessary because people have certain expectations. It's all a matter really of gnevas das. It's really about people's expectations. So that's what I think the issue of AI and copyright is. Do they have a copyright? Technically, no. But al pi halacha, you are supposed to acknowledge their contribution until it comes to the point where everybody knows AI had a contribution, then it's not such a big deal anymore. And that, if you're a college student, that's probably right at the point. Every college professor knows that the kids are doing AI. I have a friend who's a college professor. When he likes to post to social media some of the funny stories that he has. Sometimes when people copy from ChatGPT, they copy paste into a document and submit it without taking away the bottom or the top where it says, here are your results, or would you like me to add anything else? They just throw the whole thing in. So they deserve to fail. So I was thinking about something else, and we'll just talk about it briefly. How AI can replace people, and maybe that might solve halachic problems. So there's this is a little nuanced. So to break into someone's email is definitely bad, definitely wrong, legal, and against halacha. But sometimes people are careless, and they might let their correspondence slip. They might be texting each other on unsecure ways that are freely available if anybody knows where to look. They might forward emails with a whole chain below it. And if you work for a private equity firm or a hedge fund, and you get that information, and it tells you whether a merger is going to be happen, whether a big deal is going to happen, whether anything that might affect the financials of a company, then you want to act based on that and to your financial benefit. Buy, or sell. That's if you find that information legally. But sometimes you might get that information legally. You're not allowed. It's also to read someone else's emails. Any private communications. There's a Cherem of Rabbeinu Gershom, right in the 11th century, something like that. And one part of the Cherem of Rabbeinu Gershom is you're not allowed to read someone's letters, and it's been extended and expanded and paskined over time. That applies to any kind of private communication. And there's even a psak, a mind-blowing psak, in let's say for psakim with tshuvos, the Piskei HaMishpat, which says a nanny cam. If you put a nanny cam up in your house and you're videoing the nanny without her knowledge, he says that violates Cherem of Rabbeinu Gershom. She had a presumption of privacy, and you're violating her privacy. I mean, the answer is, so tell her. The whole place is videoed. You can't move, Dalet Amos without being videoed. So then you solve that problem. But certainly all the poskim agree it applies to text messages, to WhatsApps, to any kind of electronic communication. So let's say you get forwarded an email with a whole chain below it from the CEO saying, we're not going to make our budget this year, it's going to be disaster. Are you allowed to act upon that information? So with a person, I believe the answer is no. I mean, maybe someone could fetch a heter and say, well, you're not acting based on the email, someone else, a non-Jew gets the email and you're acting based on his actions. Maybe you could find such a heter. But generally speaking, you're not allowed to act on someone's private communications that they expected to be private, even if they made a mistake.
What about in the case of Skanas Nefashos?
So that someone's life overrides any Isser, certainly Cherem, and overrides anything else. But here we're talking about financial gain. Here we're talking about business.
You're gonna lose money. You know you're gonna lose money.
So that's called nisayon. It's a nisayon. B'tarach b'Hashem, or find a rabbi, he'll give you a heter. Like Harry said, there's some rabbis who will give a heter to anything. So anything, right?
Say that.
What's the number?
So here's a heter. Instead of having an analyst go pouring through the internet looking for private correspondence that might give you information, you can't trade. You're not allowed to trade based on non-public information. Let's say there's public information; it's just very hard to find. So you have an analyst going through all the message boards, looking through all sorts of things for information that might be a problem of Cherem Rabbeinu Gershom. What if you have an AI do it? An AI, and then it just tells you buy or sell. It doesn't reveal any private information. It doesn't tell you who said what or what. It just says, based on my analysis of the existing information that's out there, buy, sell. Are you allowed to do that? Does that solve the problem of Cherem Rabbeinu Gershom? I know it's a weird question to ask. I'm sorry. That was going through my mind when I learned about AI, and so I was thinking about this shiloh. So it depends on what's the problem, what is the real isser behind, or the logic behind Cherem Rabbeinu Gershom. Why did they do it? It's actually the machlokas achronim. So one opinion is it's v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Very simple. Very simple. You wouldn't want someone else to read your private correspondence, so therefore you don't read someone else's private correspondence. The sanilach, what you hate, don't do it to anybody else. That's one opinion. Another is Gnevas Das, which I find hard to understand, but it's literally stealing someone else's thoughts. So really, Gnevas Das doesn't mean stealing. If you translate it literally, Gnevas Das, it means stealing someone else's thoughts. And that's what you're doing. You're stealing someone's private thoughts. But that's not really what it means. It means misleading. So I don't understand why anybody would think... Ma? I can't hear you. No, ona'ah is hurting someone, insulting someone, injuring them.
Not only that.
Ona'at devarim.
There is ona'at devarim, but there is also ona'at ksafim. Ona'at.
Right, that's overcharging. Let's not get sidetracked there. That's overcharging, but let's not get sidetracked on that. Then there is a shita. There's a shita that it is literally gezel. You're using something that belongs to someone else without their permission. Shoel shalom midas. You're using someone else's possessions. His email, his correspondence is his possessions. You're using it, so you're stealing from him. You're stealing his possessions. So the nafkamina is a very interesting shaila that Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein posed to his father-in-law, or was posed to Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein, and then he posed to his father-in-law, Rav Yosef Shalom El Yashiv. So Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein, that's this shaila, and I'm not always sure if these shailas are real, but if you ask his father-in-law, Mistama, it's real. You don't bother the posek hador on just a theoretical question like that. So there's a doctor in Israel who accidentally read an email that was intended for his colleague. And his colleague got a job offer in Chutz La'aretz for such and such amount. Is that doctor who got the email, is he allowed to hit delete? Prevent his friend from leaving Israel? Or is he allowed to forward it to the head of the hospital, who would then make a counter offer to his friend, get him more money, and have him stay in Eretz Israel? Everybody wins. Win, win, win. Everybody wins. Is he allowed to do that? Is he allowed to forward? So delete it. That's a problem. That's a problem. But forwarding it, or informing, even if you don't forward it, if you just go and tell the head of the hospital, I know this guy got a job offer for I don't know what doctors make, $200,000 a year. You got to counter him for $300,000 a year. In Israel, that would make you a millionaire. I have no idea, actually. I don't know any of these numbers, but whatever it is, whatever it is. So, are you allowed to do that to the benefit of your friend? So, if it's v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, I implore all of you to do that for me. Make me more money if you can. I'm mochel 100%. So it's not a problem of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Is it gnevas das? Well, you're not causing him any harm. In fact, you're causing him benefit. So it wouldn't be gnevas das.
Say that by sending the email to his boss, it's good. He could be turned around and fired on the spot. He could lose the other offer also. It could be a disaster.
Assume that he knows the situation very well. They're colleagues. He understands how this works. It's a very valuable colleague. That's why they would make him a counteroffer of so much money. They wouldn't fire him. They need him. And that's why he's worth the money. But if it's gezel, if you're stealing, so that email does not belong to you, and therefore you're not allowed to forward it, you're not allowed to act on the information in it, because that's stealing. It's someone else's property, that email, that information, and you're not allowed to act on it. So Zilberstein thought it might be usher to tell the head of the hospital to make a counteroffer to this guy to keep him in Eretz Yisrael and make him more money. So that's what he thought. He asked his father-in-law. So let's go with Reb Zilberstein first, before we go to Reb Yashiv. So according to Reb Zilberstein, right? So if you get any private information about a merger or anything like that, so it should be usher because of gezel, according to that opinion. We don't know which opinion we pass like, so we'll pass in like the most macher, and it would be gezel, and it's information you're not allowed to act on. You're stealing someone else's information. But then he asked his father-in-law, and Reb Yashiv said, it's only gezel if you're causing damage to the person to whom it belongs. In the case of the email for the doctor, you're not causing him any damage. Adarabba, you're helping him. So it's not gezel. You're not using information for your own purposes. You're not hurting him in any way. So how could there be theft if there's no loss? There's no loss, so there's no theft. It's not gezel. So he thought it would be mutter. So how would that apply to our private equity firm if they get that information? So if the company that they have information about, they're not losing anything. In fact, they might make money. If you buy them up, if you buy them It could be a benefit to them. So it all depends how the information is used. It might taka be mutter to have AI do that, even though there's no like v'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. So there's no personal information being violated there. So you don't care. It's just telling you sell or buy or sell. So there's no personal information. It's not gnevas das either. You're not stealing anyone's private thoughts because no human knows about the thoughts. It's just the AI processed it and came up with the conclusion. But for Gezel, so according to Rav Zilberstein, it might be a problem. But according to Rav Yashiv, it depends on the outcome. If the people who sent the email or whose private information it is lose out, it might be Gezel. If they don't lose out, then it's not Gezel, then it would be mutter anyway. So it's a little complicated, and I don't know what the net answer is. Does AI solve the problem of Cherem or Bein Gershom in going through private information? So I think we're at the end of our time. So I thank everybody for coming for all these weeks and for contributing and being part of the conversation. So I wish everybody Thank you, Moshe Schultzer, for arranging for everything and for.
Thanks, Shai, for bringing all the food up.